The Old Testament, Genesis chapter 26. Isaac resides in Philistia. Later on, a famine swept through the land. This famine was different from the previous famine that had occurred earlier, during Abraham's lifetime. So Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, at Gerar. That's when the Lord appeared to Isaac. "You are not to go down to Egypt," he said. "Instead, you are to settle down in an area within this land where I'll tell you. Remain in this land, and I'll be with and bless you by giving all these lands to you and to your descendants in fulfillment of my solemn promise that I made to your father Abraham. I'll cause you to have as many descendants as the stars of the heavens, and I'll certainly give all these lands to your descendants. Later on, through your descendants all the nations of the earth will bless one another. I'm going to do this because Abraham did what I told him to do. He kept my instructions, commands, statutes, and laws." So Isaac lived in Gerar. Isaac lies about his wife. Later on, the men of that place asked about his wife, so he replied, "She's my sister," because he was afraid to call her my wife. He kept thinking, "Otherwise, the men around here will kill me on account of Rebekah, since she's very beautiful." After he had been there a while, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out through a window and saw Isaac caressing his wife Rebekah. So Abimelech called Isaac and confronted him. "She is definitely your wife." He accused him, "So why did you claim, 'She's my sister'?" Isaac responded, "Because I had thought, otherwise, I'll die on account of her." "What have you done to us?" Abimelech asked. "Any minute now, one of the people could have had sex with your wife and you would have caused all of us to be guilty." So he issued this order to everyone: "Whoever touches this man or his wife is to be executed." Isaac grows wealthy. Isaac received a 100-fold return on what he planted that year in the land he received, because the Lord blessed him. He became very wealthy and lived a life of wealth, becoming more and more wealthy. He owned so many sheep, cattle, and servants that the Philistines eventually became envious of him. They filled in with sand all of the wells that Isaac's father Abraham's servants had dug during his lifetime. Then Abimelech ordered Isaac, "Move away from us. You've become more powerful than we are." So Isaac moved from there and encamped in the Gerar Valley, where he settled. Disputes over water rights. Isaac re-excavated some wells that his father had first dug during his lifetime, because the Philistines had filled them with sand after Abraham's death. Isaac renamed those wells with the same names that his father had called them. While Isaac's servants were digging in the valley, they discovered a well with flowing water. But the herdsmen who lived in Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen. "The water is ours," they said. As a result, Isaac named the well Esek, for they had fiercely disputed with him about it. When his workers started digging another well, those herdsmen quarreled about that one, too, so Isaac named it Sitnah. Then he left that area and dug still another well. Because they did not quarrel over that one, Isaac named it Rehoboth, because he used to say, "The Lord has enlarged the territory for us. We will prosper in the land." God renews his promise to Isaac. Later on, he left there and went to Beersheba, where one night the Lord appeared to him. "I am the God of your father Abraham," he told him. "Don't be afraid, because I'm with you. I'm going to bless you and multiply your descendants on account of my servant Abraham." In response, Isaac built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord. He also pitched his tents there and his servants dug a well. Abimelech requests a covenant. Later, Abimelech traveled from Gerar to visit Isaac. He arrived with Ahuzzath, his staff advisor, and Phicol, the commanding officer of his army. "Why have you come to see me?" Isaac asked them, "since you hate me so much that you sent me away from you?" "We've seen that the Lord is with you," they responded, "so we're proposing an agreement between us and you. Allow us to make a treaty with you by which you'll agree not to do us any harm, just as we haven't harmed you, since we've done nothing but good for you after we sent you away in peace. As a result, you've been tremendously blessed by the Lord." So Isaac held a festival for them, and they ate and drank. They woke up early the next morning and made the treaty. After this, Isaac sent them off and they left on peaceful terms. That very same day, Isaac's servants arrived and reported to him about a well that they had just completed digging. "We found water?" they said. So Isaac named the well Sheba, which is why the city is named Beersheba to this day. The Old Testament, Genesis chapter 27. The theft of Esau's blessing. Eventually, Isaac grew so old that he could not see. One day, he called his eldest son Esau. "My son," he called out to him. "Look how old I am. I could die any day now, so go find your weapons, take your bow and arrows, go outside, and hunt some game for me. Then prepare some food, just the way I like it, and bring it to me so that I can eat and bless you before I die." Now Rebekah overheard Isaac while he was speaking to his son Esau. When Esau had gone out to the field to hunt and bring in some game, Rebekah gave these instructions to her son Jacob, "Quick! Pay attention," she said. "I heard your father talking to your brother Esau. He told him, 'Bring me some game and then prepare some food for me so I can eat and bless you in the presence of the Lord before I die.' So now, my son, listen to what I have to say and pay attention to what I'm about to tell you. Go to the flock and bring me 2 healthy young goats. I'll prepare some delicious food for your father, just the way he loves it. Then you are to take it to your father so that he can eat and bless you before he dies. But look," Jacob pointed out to his mother Rebekah, "my brother Esau is a hairy man, but I'm smooth-skinned. My father might touch me and he'll realize that I'm deceiving him. Then, I'll bring a curse on myself instead of a blessing." "My son," she replied, "let any curse against you fall on me. Just listen to me, then go and get them for me." So out he went, got them, and brought them to his mother, who then prepared some delicious food, just the way his father liked it. Rebekah and Jacob deceive Isaac. Then Rebekah took some garments that belonged to her elder son Esau, the best ones available, and put them on her younger son Jacob. She put some goat skins over his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. Then she handed the delicious food and bread that she had prepared to her son Jacob, who went to his father and said, "My father." "It's me," he replied. "Which one are you, my son?" "I'm Esau, your firstborn." Jacob told his father, "I've done what you asked, so please sit up and eat what I caught, so you can bless me." "How did you get it so quickly, my son?" Isaac asked. Jacob responded, "Because the Lord your God made me successful." So Isaac told Jacob, "Come here, my son, so I can feel you and know for sure whether or not you're my son Esau." So Jacob approached his father, who felt him and said, "It's Jacob's voice, but Esau's hands." He didn't recognize Jacob, because his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau, so Isaac blessed him. He asked, "Are you really my son Esau?" "I am," Jacob replied. "Come closer to me," Isaac replied, "so I can eat some of the game, my son, and then bless you." So Jacob came closer, and Isaac ate. Jacob also brought wine so his father could drink. After this, Jacob's father Isaac told him, "Come closer and kiss me, my son." So Jacob drew closer to kiss him. When Isaac smelled the scent of his son's clothes, he blessed him and said, "How my son's scent is the fragrance of the field that the Lord has blessed. May the Lord grant you dew from the skies, and from the fertile land, may he grant you abundant grain and fresh wine. May people serve and bow before you. May you be master over your brothers. May your mother's sons bow before you. May anyone who curses you be cursed, and may anyone who blesses you be blessed." Esau learns of Isaac's deception. Just after Isaac had finished blessing Jacob and Jacob had left his father Isaac, Jacob's brother Esau returned from hunting, prepared some delicious food, brought it to his father, and told him, "Can you get up now, father, so you may eat some of your son's game and then bless me?" But his father Isaac asked him, "Who are you?" "I'm Esau, your firstborn son," he answered. At this, Isaac began to tremble violently. "Who then," he asked, "hunted some game and brought it to me to eat before you arrived, so that I've blessed him? Indeed, he is blessed." When Esau realized what his father Isaac was saying, he began to wail out loud bitterly. "Bless me," he cried, "even me, too, my father?" Isaac replied, "Your brother came here deceitfully and stole your blessing." Then he said, "Isn't his name rightly called Jacob?" Esau asked, "He has circumvented me this second time. First, he took away my birthright, and now, look how he also stole my blessing." Then he added, "Haven't you reserved a blessing for me?" In response, Isaac told Esau, "Look, I've predicted that he's going to become your master, and I've assigned all his brothers to be his servants. What then can I do for you, my son?" Then Esau implored his father, "Don't you have even one blessing for me, my father? Bless me, even me too, my father." Then Esau lifted his voice and wept bitterly. At this, his father Isaac replied to him, "Look, away from the fertile land will be your dwellings, away from the dew of the skies above. By your sword you'll live, but you'll serve your brother. But when you become restless, you'll break off his yoke from your neck." So Esau harbored animosity toward Jacob because of the way his father had blessed him. Esau kept saying to himself, "The time to mourn for my father is very near. That's when I'm going to kill my brother Jacob." Eventually, what Rebekah's older son Esau had been saying was reported to her, so she sent for her younger son Jacob and warned him, "Look, your brother is planning to get even by killing you. Son, you'd better do what I say. Get up, run off to my brother Laban in Haran, and stay there with him a few days until your brother's fury subsides. After that happens and he has forgotten what you've done to him, I'll send for you so you can return from there. Why should I be bereaved of you both in one day?" Rebekah also told herself, "Heth's daughters are making me tired of living. If Jacob marries one of Heth's daughters, and she turns out to be just like these other local women, what kind of life would there be left for me?" The Old Testament, Genesis chapter 28. Isaac sends Jacob to Paddan-aram. Later, Isaac called Jacob and blessed him, instructing him, "Don't marry a wife from the local Canaanite women. Instead, get up, travel to Paddan-aram, and visit the household of Bethuel, your mother's father. Marry one of Laban's daughters, since he's your mother's brother. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful so that your descendants become a whole group of people. May He give you and your descendants the blessings that He gave Abraham. May you possess the land where you have lived that God gave to Abraham." So Isaac sent Jacob off toward Paddan-aram to visit Bethuel's son Laban, the Aramean and brother of Rebekah, the mother of Jacob and Esau. Esau marries a Canaanite woman. Esau noticed that after Isaac had blessed Jacob as he was sending him off to Paddan-aram to marry a wife from there, he had instructed Jacob, "Don't marry a Canaanite woman." After Jacob had obeyed his father and mother's instructions to set out for Paddan-aram, Esau realized that Canaan women didn't please his father Isaac, so he went to Abraham's son Ishmael and married Ishmael's daughter Mahalath, who was the sister of Nebaioth. God visits Jacob in a dream. Meanwhile, Jacob had left Beersheba and was on his way to Haran. He reached a certain place and spent the night there, because the sun was setting. He found a stone there, used it for a pillow, and slept there for the night, when he had a dream. He saw a raised highway that had been built with its ending point on earth and its beginning point in heaven. God's angels were ascending and descending on it. And there was the Lord, standing above it and telling Jacob, "I am the Lord God of your grandfather Abraham. I'm Isaac's God, too. I'm giving you and your descendants the ground on which you're sleeping. Your descendants are going to become like the dust of the earth and spread out to the west, east, north, and south. All the families of the earth will be blessed through you and your descendants. Now pay attention. I'm here with you, and I'm going to be watching over you wherever you go. I'm going to bring you back to this land, because I won't ever leave you until I've accomplished what I've promised about you." Jacob worships God in Bethel. Then Jacob woke up during the night and told himself, "Surely, the Lord is in this place and I never knew it." In mounting terror, he cried out, "How scary this place is! This is nothing less than God's house and the gateway to heaven." When Jacob got up early the next morning, he took the stone that he had used for his pillow, set it up as a pillar, drenched it with oil, and named the place Bethel, although previously the city had been named Luz. Then he made this solemn vow, "If God remains with me, watches over me throughout this journey that I'm taking, gives me food to eat and clothes to wear, and returns me safely to my father's house, then the Lord will be my God. This stone that I've erected in the form of a pillar will be God's house, and I'll give you a tenth of everything that you give to me. The Old Testament, Genesis chapter 29. Jacob meets Rachel. Jacob journeyed on and reached the territory that belonged to the people who lived in the east. As he was observing a well that had been dug out on the open range, all of a sudden he noticed 3 flocks of sheep lying there, because shepherds watered their flocks from that well. There was a very large stone that covered the opening of the well, and when all the flocks had been gathered there, they would roll away the stone from the opening of the well, water their flocks, and then return the stone to its place covering the opening of the well. Jacob asked them, "My brothers, where are you from?" "We're from Haran," they answered. "Do you happen to know Nahor's son Laban?" he inquired. "We do," they replied. So he asked them, "How's he doing?" "Very well," they answered. "As a matter of fact, look over there. That's his daughter Rachel, coming here with his sheep." "Look," Jacob replied. "The sun is still high. It's not yet time for the flocks to be gathered. Let's water the sheep, then let them graze." But they responded, "We can't do that until all the sheep have been gathered and the stone has been rolled away from the opening of the well. Only then can we water the flock." While he was still talking with them, Rachel arrived with her father's sheep, since she was a shepherdess. When Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, accompanied by Laban's sheep, Jacob approached the well, rolled the stone from the opening of the well, and then watered his mother's brother Laban's flock. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to cry out loud. Jacob told Rachel that he was related to her father, since he was Rebekah's son, so she ran and told her father. When Laban heard the news about his sister's son Jacob, he ran out to meet him. He embraced him, kissed him, and brought him back to his house. Then Jacob told Laban about everything that had happened. Laban responded, "You certainly are my flesh and blood." So Jacob stayed with him for about a month. Jacob agrees to work in order to marry Rachel. Later, Laban asked Jacob, "Should you serve me for free, just because you're my nephew? Let's talk about what your wages should be." Now Laban happened to have 2 daughters. The older one was named Leah and the younger was named Rachel. Leah looked rather plain, but Rachel was lovely in form and appearance. Jacob loved Rachel, so he made this offer to Laban, "I'll serve you for 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. It's better that I give her to you than to another man." Laban replied, "So stay with me." Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, but it seemed like only a few days because of his love for her. Eventually, Jacob told Laban, "Bring me my wife, now that my time of service has been completed, so I can go be with her." So Laban gathered all the men who lived in that place and held a wedding festival. Laban deceives Jacob. That night Laban took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob. He had marital relations with her. Laban also gave his servant woman Zilpah to Leah to be her maidservant. The next morning, Jacob realized that it was Leah. "What have you done to me?" he demanded of Laban. "Didn't I serve you for 7 years in order to marry Rachel? Why did you deceive me?" But Laban responded, "It's not the practice of our place to give the younger one in marriage before the firstborn. Fulfill the week for this daughter, then we'll give you the other one in exchange for serving me another 7 years. So Jacob completed another 7 years' work, and then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban also gave his woman servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel to be her maidservant. Jacob also married Rachel, since he loved her. He served Laban another full 7 years' work for Rachel. Leah's children. Later, the Lord noticed that Leah was being neglected, so he made her fertile, while Rachel remained childless. Leah conceived, bore a son, and named him Reuben, because she was saying, "The Lord had looked on my torture, so now my husband will love me." Later, she conceived again, bore a son, and declared, "Because the Lord heard that I'm neglected, he gave me this one, too." So she named him Simeon. Later, she conceived again and said, "This time my husband will become attached to me, now that I've borne him 3 sons." So he named him Levi. Then she conceived yet again, bore a son, and said, "This time I'll praise the Lord." So she named him Judah. Then she stopped bearing children. The Old Testament, Genesis chapter 30. Rachel's children by Bilhah. Rachel noticed that she was not bearing children for Jacob, so because she envied her sister Leah, she told Jacob, "If you don't give me sons, I'm going to die." That made Jacob angry with Rachel, so he asked her, "Can I take God's place, who has not allowed you to conceive?" Rachel responded, "Here's my handmaid Bilhah. Go have sex with her. She can bear children on my knees so I can have children through her." So Rachel gave Jacob her woman servant Bilhah to be his wife, and Jacob had sex with her. Bilhah conceived and bore a son for Jacob. Then Rachel said, "God has vindicated me. He has heard my voice and has given me a son." Therefore, she named him Dan. Rachel's servant conceived again and bore a second son for Jacob, so Rachel said, "I've been through a mighty struggle with my sister and won." She named him Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had stopped bearing children, she took her woman servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Leah's servant Zilpah bore a son to Jacob, and Leah exclaimed, "How fortunate!" So she named him Gad. Later, Leah's servant Zilpah bore a second son for Jacob. She said, "How happy I am, because women will call me happy." So she named him Asher. Jacob and the mandrakes. Sometime later, during the wheat harvest season, Reuben went out and found some mandrakes in the field and brought them back for his mother Leah. Then Rachel told Leah, "Please give me your son's mandrakes." In response, Leah asked her, "Wasn't it enough that you've taken away my husband? Now you also want to take my son's mandrakes?" But Rachel replied, "Very well, let's let Jacob sleep with you tonight in exchange for your son's mandrakes." When Jacob came in from the field that evening, Leah went to meet him and told him, "You're having sex with me tonight. I traded my son's mandrakes for you." So he slept with her that night. God heard what Leah had said, so she conceived and bore a 5th son for Jacob. Then Leah said, "God has paid me for giving my servant to my husband as his wife." So she named him Issachar. Later, Leah conceived again and bore a 6th son for Jacob. Then Leah said, "God has given me a good gift. This time my husband will exalt me, because I've borne him 6 sons." So she named him Zebulun. After that, Leah conceived, bore a daughter, and named her Dinah. Rachel's son Joseph is born. Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and opened her womb, so she conceived, bore a son, and remarked, "God has removed my shame." Because she had been asking, "May God give me another son," she named him Joseph. Jacob and Laban's livestock. After Rachel had given birth to Joseph, Jacob told Laban, "Send me off so that I can go back to my place and country. Give me my wives and children for whom I've served you. Then I'll leave, since you're aware of my service to you." Then Laban responded, "If I've found favor in your sight, please stay with me, because I've learned through divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. Name your wage, and I'll give it to you." But Jacob replied to Laban, "You know how I've served you and how your cattle thrived under my care. What you had previously was only a few head, but the herd has now multiplied, because the Lord has blessed you through my efforts. But now, when am I going to be able to provide for my own household? What do I have to give you?" Laban asked. Jacob responded, "You don't have to give me anything. Just do this for me, let me tend your flock again and watch over it. Let me walk among your flocks today and remove every speckled or spotted sheep, along with every black lamb, and let me do the same with the speckled and spotted goats. These will be my wages. In the future, you'll be able to verify my honesty because, when you come to check what I've earned, if you find a goat that's not speckled or spotted or a sheep that's not black, then it will have been stolen by me." "Very well," Laban replied. "We'll do it the way you've asked." That very day, Laban removed the male goats that were striped or spotted, all the female goats that were speckled or spotted, that is, every one that had white on them, and all the black lambs and placed them into the care of his sons. He sent them as far away from Jacob as a 3 days' journey could take them. Meanwhile, Jacob kept tending the rest of Laban's flock. Jacob took branches from white poplar trees, freshly cut almond trees, and some other trees, stripped off their bark to make white streaks, and uncovered the white part inside the branches. Then he placed the branches that he had stripped bare in all the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink. He placed the branches in front of the flock, and they went in to heat as they came to drink. When the flocks made it in front of the branches, they would bear offspring that were striped, speckled, or spotted. Jacob kept the lambs separate, facing the striped and entirely black ones that belonged to Laban's flock. He set his own herd by itself and would not let them be with Laban's flock. Whenever the more vigorous of the flock came into heat, Jacob would place the branches in the troughs in front of the flock to make them mate by the branches. But he didn't put the branches in front of any of the feeble members of the flock. As a result, the feeble ones belonged to Laban, but the stronger ones belonged to Jacob. Therefore the man Jacob prospered so much that he had large flocks, female and male servants, as well as camels and donkeys.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our channel, please remember to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more great videos about the Lord.